So far, you know that core data represents models using entities as manage object models, and that it creates these inside of a manage object context to create the object graph. As the graph is modified, the context keeps track of these changes. But what does it do with those changes? That's where the next part of the stack comes in, the persistent store coordinator. The persistent store coordinator, represented as an instance of NS persistent coordinator, sits in the middle of the stack, between the manage object context and the underlying persistent store, and facilitates communication between the two. While the context is responsible for keeping track of changes made to copies of the manage object model, it is the coordinator's job to create instances of the actual entities defined in the model, those generic containers we talked about earlier. Going back to the library example, a user could add a new book to the library and fill out some details. This action would add a new instance of the book entity to the context along with any relationships they define. Because the context keeps track of the existing object graph, this book and its relationships are inserted into the graph in a way that maintains its integrity. At that point, there's no real data backing this new book in the underlying store. If the user were to hit save at this point, then the context would hand off these changes to the persistent store coordinator, who then creates new instances of these entities. Similarly, if the user were to browse their list of existing books, the persistent store coordinator would be responsible for retrieving existing instances from a persistent store. To bring it all together, the manage object model defines the structure of the data, and the persistent store coordinator realizes objects from the data in the persistent store and passes those objects off to the requesting context. In design patterns, a facade is an object that serves as an interface, hiding a more complex implementation underneath. And this is exactly the role the coordinator plays. When using core data, the data might be stored across multiple data stores. Some data could be stored on disk, while some could be held in memory. But because the coordinator hides all of this away, from the perspective of the manage object context, there's just a single aggregated data store. When you save multiple versions of your manage object model, something we won't be getting into in this course, these are stored across different data stores, and the coordinator handles the communication and logic to interact with the various stores. A few iOS versions ago, you had to create all of these objects on your own. But these days, it's just a few lines of code, and that's because there's one object to rule them all. In the next video, let's build a stack using a persistent container.